answers and speeches have been seen and heard, Altobelli picked up where he left off in 1982. Butler made them pay the penalty with a late equaliser. He set off on a personal lap of honour, while replays of the goal from every possible angle. Bilardo's men quickly got down to business against the South Korean side, competing at the finals for the first time. Time after time, Maradona created Argentina's first 2 goals with free kicks, and their third with a far post cross. This time the Koreans fancied their chances. Suffered an early setback when Plum and Gethoff, goal-scoring hero in the qualifying competition, midway through the second half. They had yet to win. Altobelli was again the key man, even though he missed the first half penalty. Then he scored twice. Creative work of Jorge Burruchaga in midfield, defensive resolution of Jose Luis Brown. Midfielders and not one established striker. Created not one serious goal attempt and got what they deserved. Serious goal attempt and got what they deserved. México 86, donde se vive la emoción. Injury home with him from the season in Spain, so the roar which greeted his goal, Mexico's second, echoed around the country, in which almost failed dismally in the second half to build on that rare success. Any appetite for a fight seemed sadly lacking. Expected to be even weaker. The only goal fell to Julio Romero, Paraguay's midfield general, who starred, like Maradona, in the 1970 together for almost 6 months. Cohesion achieved was evident after only 2 minutes at the start against Paraguay. Boy was again the creator. Sanchez collected his second yellow card of the tournament. He missed the group decider against Iraq. Romero was one of the early stars of the event. Else expected to beat Iraq and run up a hatful of goals. He made no secret of Iraq's approach to the World Cup. They said, "We didn't come here." Continuing defiance meant that they Belgium's complacency to claim an excellent goal of their own. His opening goal of the finals against Belgium put his name on the score sheet again. Proportions joined them as one of the 4 best third-place teams. By springing the Belgian offside trap. Hayes had to rebuild his team around reliable performers from the past like Eric Herretz and Jan Kerlemans. Cabañas, who'd been playing with the America club of Colombia, would earn a lucrative transfer to France. México 86, México 86, donde se vive la emoción. Were in no position to argue. They made France wait 78 minutes for the winner. Jean-Pierre Papin, who would later develop into one of them, not prepared for an onslaught which brought the Soviet Union 3 cracking goals inside the first half an hour. The Hungarians had sent spies along to the Soviets' last training game, a match against the local Mexican team, in which the visitors had scored 10 goals. Soviet Disky scrapped the World Cup squad announced by Malofeyev and named a new one, including 12 of his own men from the Ukraine. Goal of the finals so far. After 30 years in this match, we had no choice. We had to win. For the good of Meze's nerves, Hungary scored a second goal midway through the second half. Onveds Lajos Detari starting and completing the move. Union took France only half an hour to break down Hungary's brittle resistance. Once Yannick Stopira, son of a former international, had scored, also amid speculation that he and Meze could always see eye to eye. Even Niloshi might have been pushed to control Tigana. Known more for self-confidence, Dominique Rocheteau enjoyed the freedom of the park. France had to be called up from a rest on the bench to replace the injured Oleg Protasov. He promptly used his skills to set up second half earlier with a masterly midfield display as Kiev had beaten Atletico Madrid in the European Cup winners.
México 86, México 86, donde se vive la emoción.
Minimum action and no goals. The Jalisco Stadium saw a welcome contrast. Fine football illuminated by the sunshine. 5 minutes. Kicks Jamel Zidane rifled Algeria's equaliser beyond Pat Jennings. Scored after only a minute. As Spain went further ahead through Julio Salinas, Irish manager Billy Bingham was furious, describing it as a giveaway goal. Known as Montezuma's revenge. One of the first victims had been Barcelona midfielder Ramon Caldere. It had taken him until now to regain. Their fans still waited impatiently to see Zico. Made a happy return as a second-half substitute alongside his goal-hungry teammates.
México 86, México 86, donde se vive la emoción.
Top scorer in the qualifiers with 8 goals, carried on where he had left off back in Europe the previous autumn. Than most of his teammates or opponents, and it was Fuller whose dogged pursuit of the ball laid on the match winner for Alofs. Not since Holland introduced what became known as total football to the rest of the world in the early 70s. They narrowed the gap with a penalty from Enzo Francescoli. The problem was that their domestic game had stayed amateur, while most other countries had turned professional. The Danes were in danger of being left behind. One kept to the rules. Players who did not fly back to training or selection with the national team were ignored. So was anyone not playing first team. was who rounded off Denmark's 6-goal special. In the second half, both Littbarski and Rummenigge were brought into the action, but by then it was too late. Denmark had established a 2-goal advantage through Jesper, was open to doubt.
México 86, México 86, donde se vive la emoción.
Been a member of the Portugal team beaten by England in the 1966 semi-finals. Carlos Manuel scored the goal, which helped Portugal forget their shot beneath Vitor Damas, Portugal's reserve goalkeeper. Damas had been rushed into... No African side had ever previously broken through the first-round barrier. Portugal played for the army team FAR. They were reigning African club champions. Managing both club and country was a Brazilian. Portugal could offer little by way of washed away by Morocco and the rain, along with their prospects of World Cup progress. Hodge were brought into the starting lineup. They made a world of difference, especially to Gary Lineker. Finishing. For the fans of England and even Poland, to say nothing of Lineker himself.
México 86, México 86, donde se vive la emoción.
The Soviets, they'd warred through their group matches while the Belgians struggled. They had been scoring almost at will while the Belgians had appeared barely willing to try a shot for tat football, with Enzo Schifo equalising. The Swedish referee Erik Fredriksson had no doubts. The match ran on into extra time. The classic route to glory begins with a slow start. The Soviet team was not a machine. The clockwork was beginning to wind down. Goalkeeper Pfaff was furious, but not for long. Belgium had reached the quarter-finals. Poland had missed the boat. Zico arrived as a substitute for Socrates. The kick-off, they belted the ball downfield, while each player ran to his predetermined tactical position. Mexico's midfield general, Manuel Corner, headed home by Raul Servin. Everyone was delighted to see the Mexicans reach the quarter-finals. Equally welcome was the sight of the negative. No quarter asked, none given. In this case, it was Diego Maradona who showed no mercy. He unleashed all his brilliant gifts. Uruguay for the red card. If Paraguay had concentrated more on their football, they might have run England closer. Paraguay hadn't hold the first shot from Terry Butcher. Peter Beardsley was waiting to pounce. And Lineker's second goal provided England with an unassailable 3-0 lead. But this Italian team looked tired. France had more flair and style, and they had Michel Platini. Italy was so worried about second goal, which ended Italy's 4-year reign on top of the world. Moroccans, their concentration wavering, failed to organise their wall properly. Lothar Matthäus shot through the gap. The Moroccan adventure was over. The area before Olsen had even struck his kick. Hero of the day was Emilio. On other sport, it didn't. They had second thoughts, and Denmark paid a 4-goal penalty. no one could accuse them of being boring in victory or defeat. Became the first player to score 4 goals in a match in the sophisticated French champions of the old world against the greatest soccer nation in the new world. It was Brazil who seized an early lead. Careca's 5th goal of the final. Goalkeeper Carlos and Stopira missed the ball, and Platini tapped it in at the far post. Maradona's infamous goal, 5 minutes into the second half, owed Maradona a glimpse of his second. Into the tournament's outright top scorer with 6 goals, an accolade no other British player had ever earned. Mexico '86 offered no fewer than 14 matches at risk. No one had expected that 3 of the prestigious quarter-finals would go. To avenge that semi-final in Seville 4 years earlier had been drastically threatened. Given up hope, German substitute Rudi Völler scored a second goal, which was almost academic. This time, unlike in 1982, the Germans hadn't needed penalties. Argentina looking a class superior to Belgium. And a footballer of proven genius. Belgium didn't complain in defeat. Reaching the semi-final itself had been prize enough. They knew that may have been more of a handicap than a virtue. Despite taking an early lead through Jan Keulemans, World Cup battle fatigue ultimately proved their answer. Raymond Kopa and Just Fontaine had always been compared with that era. Not any longer. French football now had a new point of reference. chance. Jean-Pierre Papin had put them into the lead before half-time. Nico Klaassen's equaliser for Belgium after 72 minutes sent his teammates into again. Gengini scored in an undignified but ultimately rewarding goalmouth scramble. He seemed to have had his poorest game of the finals. In fact, he was fouled for the free kick which produced Argentina's first goal. He was instrumental in the move. Germany had reached the final thanks to traditional virtues such as effort, commitment and a solid defence. In a competition of erratic standards, then and only then applied themselves to attacking Argentina with 17 minutes to go. Rummenigge made up one goal. Suddenly West Germany's first header, Rudi Völler following up. Germany level 2-2. Argentina's mastery in the tournament. Burruchaga found the net. The hand of God will shortly lift the World Cup. This may have been flawed by his...
من فضلكم ادعمونا بلايك واشتراك وتفعيل زر الجرس وشكرا.